In this mission, we look at the topic of advocating for change. The goal of this video is to help you become an effective champion of change and increase your skill at helping people advance along the change curve. We're going to look at the 3 change conversations: tell, sell, and ask. Our focus will be on tell and sell because we will address the ask in our next mission on coaching people through change. We will revisit why it's so important to be clear on the vision for change and the reasons people will benefit from the change. We will discuss communicating the right message and holding the right conversation at the right time. We'll look at our role in removing obstacles to change. And finally, we'll note the importance of celebrating change success. So let's dive in. Throughout history, people have said that leading change is not easy, which is why we are going to spend this mission working on our skills to help people adapt to change. We want to acknowledge your willingness to lead important and difficult changes. We know people's resistance to change is often deeply ingrained. However, becoming better at the skills of bringing people into acceptance of change is very possible. When you think about it, there are only 3 types of conversations in business, and that includes change conversations. Change advocates must communicate to paint a clear, vivid, and unequivocal vision and direction for change. That is the tell of change conversations. They must help everyone understand the reason behind the change and the benefits that make the change worthwhile and essential. That is the sell of change conversations. Finally, they must turn and ask their teams responsible for executing the change what they need to move forward efficiently and effectively. That is the ask of change conversations. Many change efforts struggle because leaders have never learned the art of coaching people through change, holding the type of meaningful dialogue that enrolls and empowers the people who might otherwise resist the change. If you reflect back, you have probably seen this yourself. As a leader, you need to clearly understand the tell and the sell of any change you are leading. And you need to understand how to coach people through the change, the ask conversation of change leadership. These conversation skills are at the core of successful change leadership, and we will explore them in this and our next mission. If you're going to advocate for change, it's important that you have a clear understanding of the message that you want to share and that it aligns with the intended change. Be sure to understand the benefits the change brings, be respectful of your team and the fears this may generate, and also prepare yourself to handle unintended consequences. They happen all the time, and typically, with some forward thinking, we can head the negative impact off at the pass. If you don't clearly understand all of the benefits of the change, have conversations with those behind the change to better understand the why behind the need to change. To sell people on the change, you need to understand their resistance. Do you understand the specific fears people have about making the change? If not, listen with empathy. Painting the vision of how and why work life will be improved are core skills of the change advocate. Remember how we encouraged you to develop your story of change in the previous mission? That's because people remember and respond to stories. Getting a simple story structure like this will help people get excited about the upside of change. When painting the vision of a better future, consider using this simple storytelling structure of what is and what could be. Some of the great change advocates in recent history were masters of this story structure. Just go watch a speech from Martin Luther King Jr. or John F. Kennedy, and you'll see what we mean. Clear communication is rooted in a story structure that allows the audience to get excited about a reason to think or behave differently. This 3-part story structure is used for all types of communication, but it's particularly effective when you're trying to influence others. This format allows you to tell a story that shares the status quo, or what is, and then reveal the what could be. At the beginning of the story, again in the middle of the story, and finishing up with a call to action that promotes a new bliss that we'll achieve after we have accomplished the change. This structure can help you craft a message that is easy to digest, remember, and retell. Sharing what is and what can be gained helps bring others on board and helps tap into the what's in it for me mindset. So give this story structure a try the next time you're asked to advocate for change. Besides being able to tell a good story, it also helps to be good at listening to how people are responding to your story. Listening is your best approach to help people move through emotional resistance to change. You want to craft your communications with the change curve in mind. Don't be tempted to push people too fast. Pushing people to experiment with change before they are ready is unlikely to produce your desired results. People need to feel that those who have power care about their concerns and will listen to them. Listening to people's reactions is just as important as explaining the reasons for change. Listening is your best approach to help people move through an emotional resistance to change. It shows respect, it shows you care, it builds empathy and trust. Strive to always listen to understand their change readiness, where they are in the change curve. Practice listening for change readiness is a challenge we're going to be asking you to take on during this mission. You may remember that there are many ways to listen. All of them have their place. When advocating for change, you want to listen for change readiness. Based on what your team is doing and saying in response to change, you can discern where they are along the change curve. Knowing this is key to keeping people moving through the curve efficiently and effectively. Savvy change advocates shift conversations according to where their people are on the change curve. Remember, performance dips at multiple times. When people first hear about a change, they begin to ask questions and get concerned. Here you need to be communicating the clear vision and need for change. When the training and early change activities first roll out, people need different conversations to help them navigate the change. Later, when the change is fully live and employees are starting to deal with the reality of differences in their work processes, they need different kinds of encouragement to get over the discomfort that often comes with learning new behaviors. So your conversations need to shift as people move along the change curve. They need to move from telling and selling to coaching. They move from informational to engaging to empowering. And they move from getting people to experiment to getting people to change permanently and sustain the change. These shifts in conversation are not strictly linear. There is a need to inform and to advocate and sell all along. It's also important to listen and ask questions or coach all along. A common error is to assume telling somebody something once is enough. People need to hear things several times in several ways before they adopt and sustain new behavior. The other common pitfall is to forget to engage in two-way dialogue. People always adapt better when they are listened to and they feel they are part of the change, even if their input is simply a small part of the change execution. Here are some of the common root causes for resistance to change and potential approaches to dealing with it. They may say, I have no choice in this change. Can some element of the change, the how, the when, etc., lessen this change resistance? I may lose my job. What are the real likely consequences? And if that's true, how can it be ameliorated? This change makes no sense. Explain the reasons behind the change. This will make my job harder. Is that really true? Are there offsetting benefits? Can we reward and recognize people for extra effort? I may lose mastery of my job. Can we provide training and time to adapt? I may lose power and control with this change. Where possible, invite others into the planning, giving them ownership. I might lose face. Acknowledge the useful contributions of the old ways of doing things. Our team has a poor track record with change. Explain how and why this time will be different. This is so uncertain. Provide a sense of safety as well as an inspiring vision. Leaders should create certainty of process with clear, simple steps and timetables. This is also sudden. Avoid the temptation to craft changes in secret and then announce them all at once. It's better to plant seeds, that is, to sprinkle hints of what might be coming and seek input. Unexpensive consequences will doom this change. Are they right? Can we listen to and adapt our approach to minimize unintended and unforeseen consequences? We're going to be adding this slide to the mission as a document that you can print out and keep handy as a job aid. We now turn to the central role you play as a change advocate. As a change advocate, you communicate both up and down. You must listen closely to senior leadership's vision for the change and why it's important so that you can relay that information with clarity and understanding. You also have a role in feeding back to upper management any concerns and potential roadblocks to change so that the circumstances can be made optimal for execution of the desired change. If we're unclear as to the vision or the reasons that are driving the change, we need to ask for that information so we can communicate with authenticity and credibility. If we uncover unforeseen barriers to change or potential unintended consequences, we need to speak up and share them back up the chain of command. Don't forget, there are other important stakeholders who can help us advocate for change. We need to communicate with peers and other stakeholders, including customers, business support functions, IT, and many others. We dialogue with peers to gain their understanding of the change and to coordinate, collaborate. Often speak with external stakeholders, such as customers, who need to understand the change themselves and how it will impact them. And we gather insights from those stakeholders to feed back to our teams and other leaders. The role in the center of change is important. We are the hub of communication. We pass on critical information, the what and why of change. We are critical in creating the important dialogue around the how of executing the change. And we communicate the effectiveness of change on the ground, alerting and suggesting ways to adjust the changes to achieve the intended outcomes. There are two powerful reasons you want to connect with relevant stakeholders as a change advocate: to understand and clarify relevant perspectives and to expand your network. Stakeholders, by definition, have skin in the game, and knowing their perspective can help you understand the why behind change. Expanding your network is important for a couple of reasons too. Making connections helps build a support structure for current and future change initiatives. Visibility with other stakeholders promotes transparency and openness instead of functioning within a silo. Because of our location in the middle of change, our role is varied and enormous. We listen closely to senior leadership's vision for change and why it's important so that we can relay that information with clarity and understanding. We also have a role in feeding back to upper management the concerns and potential roadblocks to change so that circumstances can be made optimal for execution of the desired change. And we have a duty of helping to validate, verify, measure, and adjust to realities on the ground. Sometimes this can be uncomfortable. Which of the following statements is most true for you regarding your habits when there is a need to report problems back up the chain? I lack confidence in reporting problems back up the hierarchy. I do not like asking for additional resources to execute change. I enjoy seeking out ways to adjust for better change outcomes. My relationship with my supervisor is high trust, so no problems here. Or maybe, hey, I'm working on it. Whatever your current response is, you will probably benefit from getting more comfortable in letting your superiors know when you see potential problems in executing desired change. There are many reasons for this. Obstacles help support resistance. They provide an excuse for why an individual may not adopt a change. So it will be necessary to work with others to identify and remove those obstacles to change. Some obstacles are obvious and foreseeable, which hopefully means they are easier to remove. For instance, a new system is launched, but the old technology is still available for individuals to continue using. The unforeseen obstacles can be a little more difficult to plan for, but will require your attention when you see them. For example, perhaps a new system has launched and you discover your team requires more detailed training. Here are 3 best practices for removing obstacles. 1, remove the old and do so as soon as possible. There may be need to transition or phase things out, but set milestones to fully transition by a determined date. Speak up. Communicate issues to your team, but also with management to keep everyone in the loop. And 3rd, remove what you can yourself. Then communicate back out when action has been taken or you need more help. We mentioned that all leaders have an important role in measuring, validating, and making adjustments during change. In the spirit of test, measure, test, how will you know that change has occurred? Ask yourself these questions to make sure you can measure progress and validate performance so that you can make appropriate adjustments. It will be important to report back up when change is going well, but also when there are problems. Before we complete our discussion of the tell and sell aspects of change advocacy, we need to address the power of recognition and appreciation in easing people along the change curve. Recognition is about more than results. It also needs to be about effort and attitude to encourage a growth mindset. Even the simple act of appreciation and recognition itself has subtleties, as shown here on this model. Understanding and practicing all 3 categories of recognition will increase your recognition repertoire while encouraging peak performance of your team. This model of recognition comes from a professor of management at Laval University in Canada. On the left is recognition of the person for who they are as a person, appreciating their strengths and skills. In the middle is recognition of the work process, things like good habits, persistence, and effort. On the far right is recognition of results and the objectives achieved. It can be easy to forget to recognize effort, attitude, and commitment and focus mostly on results. However, there is good neuroscientific evidence that recognizing effort, not results, encourages experimentation and that open growth mindset we're trying to achieve. Development is about encouraging people to try new things and to view failure as a learning opportunity. When you recognize people's persistence, their positive attitude, and their willingness to stretch and grow, you are supporting their potential and their development. Knowing this, doesn't it make sense to increase your recognition of the person in the process, not just the results? It's worth reflecting on what keeps us from recognizing effort more often and what we will need to change in order to increase that. Remember that how one person receives recognition is a personal preference. Some people like it done publicly, others appreciate private recognition more than having it done in public. Ask employees what their personal preference is before assuming to make sure that you're correctly crafting not just the what, but the how of recognizing. One of your challenges for the coming weeks will be to practice using recognition more generously and in a targeted way to encourage your people's use of their skills, strengths, and good habits. Here are some best practices to help you be a virtuoso of change advocacy. We'll put a copy of this in the mission so you can print it out and keep it handy. While all of these are important, it is unwise to try to boil the ocean. Better to choose 1 or 2 areas of focus and work on that to make improvements. Then you can tackle the next area for your development as a change advocate. Where will you start?